We got some fireworks for you today.
Mock draft number 2 coming right at you. We have a special guest, one Nick that you've seen before, joining us today for a 3-person free-for-all standard scoring 12-team mock draft. Let's jump into it. And welcome back to the Standard Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Jono.
And I'm your host, Chris. And we're jumping into our second live drafting of a standard team, 12-team league. So this one, Jono selected the first overall pick.
We did randomize.
But Jono's got the first overall pick. Our buddy Nick is in here, the lesser Greek. He is drafting at the 8 position, and I am drafting at the 10 position. Love to see it.
Now, to go over again, this is 6 point per passing touchdown, a 12-team standard scoring. We will get into some half-point PPR and a full-point PPR drafts, but here at the standard, we focus on the standard. It is the original way to do fantasy football. So what we're doing here,
the best way.
In the best way.
We're
going to do 10 rounds here. Even though it may go for 15 rounds, we're going to do 10 rounds here, and then we'll end the draft, and we'll go over who every team has. So we're not going to get into defenses and kickers here. We're going to be more focused on position players.
Yeah, a lot of those late-round sleepers are probably going to fall to those later rounds, but we'll go into a whole other episodes on who our favorite sleepers are, who you should be targeting in those rounds 11 through 15 outside the defense and the kicker. So let's go ahead and kick it off.
Yeah, you know what? We'll see how this draft goes. Maybe we'll go 12, maybe we'll go 14 rounds.
Hey, who knows?
But we'll see. So let's kick it off here. Draft's going to start.
Yeah,
let's go. I'm on the clock. I got to go CMC. Now, that being said, the number one running back coming back around and being the number one running back in the next year is few and far between. But there's only one other running back in standard scoring that I kind of want to take a chance on at the number 1 spot, but I think it's too hard to pass up on CMC. It would be Breece Hall. Breece Hall is the only one that I could say is like, he has a chance to be RB1 this season.
He does, absolutely, and he's the only other one. I mean, you could make a couple arguments for a couple other guys that are going to slip, but at the number 1 position, the value's not going to be there. You know, are you going to take Jonathan Taylor there at number 1? Are you going to take Josh Jacobs, who both I think have legit opportunities to be the number 1 running back overall?
Bijan Robinson, you can argue if an uptick.
I'm still not there yet.
No, I'm saying, but there's a pathway for that, and I'm just saying in the chances that CMC stays and holds the reins at the number 1, history has not repeated itself at all in that case, or very often skip to the tune. But that being said, I'm okay if Christian McCaffrey finishes top 4 at the position, grabbing him number 1 overall.
Well, you're grabbing security there, right? That's what you're doing.
So
it's going to be a stable workhorse. You're going to have to go with them. Like, who else are you going to go? Justin Jefferson goes number 2, CeeDee Lamb, Tyreek Hill, Jamar Chase, Bijan Robinson, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and now we got Lambros on the clock.
And St. Brown, one of his favorite players, Nick recruited him, as he would say, in his fantasy team, took him early.
And he goes A.J. Brown.
A.J. Brown going for the wide receiver, skips the Breece Hall. They're putting Chris on the board. That's a close one because that guy could have slipped to you pretty easily.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, he's right there. That could have slipped forward. I think that it's a standard league, right? And a lot of teams, I don't have a ton of him in a lot of these drafts, but I'm going to go Jahmyr Gibbs right here.
I like that pick.
And really stick with the running backs. I know there's some other guys there, but I like Jahmyr Gibbs, and this is kind of what I wanted to happen was Saquon Barkley goes, and now I have an opportunity to go Jonathan Taylor at my number 2, right? So now I'm stacked up at running back 1 and 2, and I feel pretty good there to where I can now move along and load up on wide receiver for the next couple picks.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that this is standard scoring, obviously touchdowns are king here. You got 2 guys that command the lead in their backfields. I know Gibbs did towards the end of the season. He's projected to do that again this season. So I like that. I like the Taylor pick too as well. Barkley would have been my one I would have swung around if he fell to you. Kyron's another one that I do kind of like. I'm just kind of still getting my toe wet in the water with that one because of all the reports out of camp. And we all know how McVay can be with these running backs. He loves them and then he hates them. So
right.
That's why I'm more on the Corum train, because at least he has something to prove.
Well, Kyron's still going to get a lot of work there, and
correct.
I think you can't be afraid to go Kyren Williams, but you also have to realize
Kyren Williams in the first couple picks of the second round is it's a little bit tentative for me.
Yeah,
I feel more comfortable with Taylor.
Yeah, I mean, the other guys you go, yeah, of course, and that's why I go and get Taylor there. But, Devontae Adams is here. Drake London, constantly falling down past his ADP by a couple picks. You could go run quarterback, Devon Achane, and then Travis Etienne are the next two guys to go outside of Derrick Henry. So those are the guys from a running back perspective. You don't get a running back in the first round. Nick goes Kyron
We'll
Williams.
talk about Nick's pick shortly here. We got a couple more minutes before my pick.
First quarterback off the board, first tight end off the board.
Yeah, Kels goes first. Josh Allen over here, team 5. Team 3 going with Olave, and then Derrick Henry goes. Bringing it back to me here at the 1 spot. Just to wrap up Nick's pick there, he starts off with AJ and Kyron. I like that. He solidifies 2 solid positions, a wide receiver 1 and a running back 1, which at the 8th spot is easy to do, but he's got a while to pick again, just like you do, and you solidify your running backs before they're all dried up.
Right.
Or at least the top ones there. So
now you're in a position here where the draft kind of fell to you a little bit, where you really could do some interesting things here. I mean, the next 2 guys on the board are Devon Achane and Travis Etienne. You got Sam Laporta still available, Josh Jacobs, and then you get into some of the wide receivers, right? The Nico Collins, the Mike Evans, the Debo's, the Stephon Diggs. So, and then you're not picking again for almost 2 rounds.
Correct. And in my opinion, you gotta stick to your convictions. If you like a guy, and you're at the 1 spot or the 12 spot, and the draft's going away from you in terms of the snake, you got to make a choice. Don't have to go ADP, but if you like a guy that you know is not going to be there 22 more picks later, you take him. But
this is what I like to do, especially at the turn here, is like reach for a guy and then take the guy that fell, the safe pick, and then reach for your guy.
So what I'm probably going to do here is I'm going to probably take the upside of Achane over Etienne.
Sure.
And then the tough part for me at the wide receiver, I want to get my wide receiver here. There's a chance to go one of these top quarterbacks, but when you're at the number 1 pick, I don't like taking a top quarterback in the first 3 picks because of all the value you lose after that.
Yeah, for sure.
In terms of wide receivers here, Nico's the highest ADP wise here. You have Evans, Debo, Stephon, DJ Moore, Waddle. DJ Moore is interesting to me. Waddle's interesting to me, 2 guys with high upside, but I think Nico Collins is in the tier above them, just above that tier in terms of what he's doing, the youth there. I don't think I'm that high on Stephon Diggs. In fact, I'm trying to let other people take him, and I'm okay.
I'm in that same boat right now. And that's where I like Nico Collins as being the guy in Texas or for the Texans. Stephon Diggs is coming into not a 1A role.
No.
Like he did in Buffalo.
No. He's going to have a role, probably a little bit more short yardage role and third downs and really being the guy there. So I go Nico Collins as my wide receiver 1. ETN goes afterwards. Laporta, second tight end off the board. Debo, Mike Evans, Josh Jacobs, Waddle. And sitting here is Nick with a wide receiver in Brown and a running back in Kyron. See what he does here. He can do a lot here because it isn't a quick turnaround for him, but it's quick enough that he could take a chance on one of the top quarterbacks here, and something could still fall to him.
Yeah, no, for sure. And that's the thing is looking at this, looking at the value here, and coming up in a couple picks for me. Again, you can go top end quarterback. There's still a lot of value there at the wide receiver position, at the running back position, to be able to load up on those players that you can go and get some quarterbacks later on. Those guys are going to get taken, right? The Lamar Jacksons, the Jalen Hurts, the Patrick Mahomes, and the C.J. Strouds. But do you go and take a risk on one of those players in the first 3 rounds, or you have guys like DJ Moore, like you talked about, and Stephon Diggs. You still have Pacheco on the board, Neighbors, Pittman, Rashad White, guys that are going to get volume and going to be key pieces of their offense, and you can go and get any one of those guys right there.
Yeah, and the thing I like about DJ Moore, I think there's a little hesitation. Everybody's like, Keenan Allen's in town. Keenan's going to get his. Don't get me wrong. He's going to.
Keenan's the volume play.
Keenan's a target volume play. He's a route running specialist, but DJ Moore is going to solidify the overall receiver role.
This is probably we might need to do a 10-minute video on this.
We will when you break down our divisions. Which keep an eye out for those.
The Keenan Allen versus DJ Moore kind of. Who do you value? Who's better in PPR? Who's better in standard? So Cooper Kupp is taken by Lambros.
So Nick stays with the Rams here and doubling up, which is sometimes good to do if you have a high firepower offense. I don't know if the Rams are considered that, but I like Kupp. I think Kupp has been slipping in drafts because everybody wants Puka to be the guy, and he will be. But Kupp is going to still be a over 1,000-yard receiver. I give him 7-8 touchdowns this season. He's worthy of a wide receiver 1, low-end wide receiver 1, high-end wide receiver 2 pick.
Yeah, and so, for me here, I go and get the 2 running backs in the first 2 rounds. It's time to load up on some receivers, I think. I do like some of the running backs that are still available. I do like Rachaad White here, and I do like James Cook here. Again, 2 guys that I'm not going to pick in this position, but there is a guy here I could probably go and get both of them. I'm going to go and get DJ Moore here, and I'm hoping that he continues
Neighbors,
to fall.
Diggs,
and he does.
Jackson, and Hurts go next. Chris, talk a little bit about that DJ Moore pick, because you don't know who Team 11 and Team 12 are, but in our league drafts, you're going to know who Team 11, 12 are, and you know how they draft. But why DJ Moore over the guy that you're hoping was going to quote unquote fall to you?
And he did. And so my guy fell down to me. The DJ Moore, and the reason I went and picked him is because, you have a guy that's behind me that might be too early to go on Rachaad White. You still have some value there. He already has 2 wide receivers, but a guy that might solidify another wide receiver, I might lose the opportunity on getting DJ Moore. And the having a solid wide receiver 1 to be able to pair with Michael Pittman, who I'm going to go ahead and draft right here at my second, with those big name quarterbacks still on the board, with only 1 quarterback taken before that, someone's going to go and take him. They're going to see Lamar Jackson there. They're going to see Jalen Hurts there, and they're going to say, I need to go and take those guys.
Yeah.
And so they did. And then you have that other wide receiver that does fall to you.
So, just speaking in terms of strategy here, if I was in your shoes at that 11 spot, and this is just the way I would have drafted the 10 spot, I would have been sitting there looking, I've got 2 running backs and I need a wide receiver, right? I do know the 2 guys after me, one already has 2 wide receivers and one has a wide receiver and a running back. The odds of them, and they ended up taking each a wide receiver, but the odds of them taking a wide receiver at that versus a running back at that point, I'd be less concerned about DJ Moore going, but okay with getting Pittman if I wanted to go with somebody else at that first pick where you got Moore.
Yeah, but
because of how they've already had their team makeup. Now this is
the only other guy I would have taken
AI
there
here.
is Stephon. The only other guy I would have taken there in that position was Stephon Diggs or Michael Pittman in that spot. But I knew Michael Pittman was probably going to be there again in my second pick, and I like DJ Moore over Stephon Diggs.
Correct.
So I
too.
go and take DJ Moore, and then Michael Pittman does fall to me. Now I luck out, but there's another guy there that I would have been comfortable if I missed out on Pittman to go and get. So I'm totally comfortable with getting DJ Moore and Michael Pittman. I would have been comfortable getting DJ Moore and another wide receiver that's probably going to go in the next couple picks. So I like having those 2. And again, I solidify having my starting 2 wide receivers and my starting 2 running backs in the first 4 picks. Now I can do whatever because I'm not handcuffed.
Handcuffed, yeah. Nick goes Tank Dell, then Zay Flowers goes after him, Devonta Smith, Kenneth Walker, the next 2 big QBs off the board, James Cook, and then it's up to me here, 2 picks in a row at the end of the 4th, beginning of the 5th. Talking about Nick's team here, Nick's got 3 wide receivers, 3 high-powered wide receivers. To me, 2 that could have game-breaking opportunities with Tank Dell and A.J. Brown. Those guys can go off for big points.
Yep.
I think Cooper Kupp is his steady Eddie, too, in his flex role, because this is a 2 wide receiver, 1 flex. And then Kyron as his lead running back. And so it looks like he's probably going to lean in on these other running backs, like most likely your James Connors, some of these guys down. Mostert's going to be available.
Yeah. And I do wonder that if Rachaad White hadn't gone after me, that if he would have went Rachaad White over Tank Dell, and we'll chat with him afterwards. He'll probably leave some comments in the chat.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, like that's the position where you're like, all right, well, I lost out on the running back. Do I reach on another running back here, or do I hope that some guy is going to fall to me? He could have went Kenneth Walker, he could have went James Cook, but with the value of Tank Dell there, you go ahead and take him. The other wide receiver that I was talking about was Devonta Smith, that I would have been perfectly happy grabbing at the beginning of the 4th round.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing too. For me, for where I'm at, I'm looking at quarterbacks here. That I don't know if everybody could see it here, but I'm not willing to take a chance yet on Anthony Richardson in maybe the 5th round. What I do like here is I want to do what Chris did. I want to solidify my 2 wide receivers and 2 running backs. And DK here is the top in my rankings. I just like what he can bring to the table, and I think he's going to have a big role this season. And his touchdown ability is going to be there and always be there. Even if JSN does more away from the line of scrimmage that they're expecting, I think that eats into Lockett more than it eats into DK.
For sure.
So I like that. But now I'm sitting here too is I really want a piece of the pie of these top tight ends.
Yeah.
And it rarely goes where I go ADP, bang, bang at where they are. But McBride right now, I have him over top of the rest of the tight ends, as they do here. I mean, him and Mark Andrews are right next to each other, and I know Mark Andrews and what he covets for that offense. But I think McBride is going to be a great safety belt and a great weapon for Kyler Murray this year.
I do too. And the rapport that he had with him last year towards the end of the season is really good. He's one of those dynamic tight ends that has the ability to break open games that very, very few tight ends in the league have. To be the 3rd tight end off the board, I think is a good spot for him. I do like him over Andrews as well. And that's kind of my order is Kels, Laporta, whatever 1-2 punch you want to put that in. And then McBride's the clear number 3.
In terms of, I think he's got the ceiling higher. And if they didn't add the King to the running back role in Baltimore, I would have liked Andrews a little bit more because that red zone opportunity where he just eats up touchdowns, he would have been there. But now we're talking about.
But remember, the King does throw the ball.
You're not wrong, but he's thrown it to not just tight ends, he's thrown it to offensive linemen before too. So, but I just think that the role McBride had is 100% his there. He's the wide receiver 2 for that offense. I mean, Andrews, you could argue is the wide receiver 1 there, but that's a run-first offense.
Right.
I'd rather be in a pass-first offense in Arizona.
Yeah, and I will say the one downside that I will share with you for Trey McBride is that we saw him last year on a team that had no one. They didn't have anyone on that team to throw the ball to.
Yeah.
So it had to be McBride, had to be someone that had to catch the ball. I still think it opens up for him more now that Marvin Harrison, now they do have some weapons there.
Kyler's another year removed from ACL.
Right.
Like there's so much more that to like about that Arizona offense in terms of the receiving game than it is the pass catchers than it is for the receiving game in Baltimore. Right. That's where I'm staying with that. Andrews goes right after me. Mixon, Kamara, Dalton Kincaid for the 5th tight end off the board. Anthony Richardson goes to team 6. Aaron Jones to team 7 for their first running back. Back to Nick to see what he does here.
And so I bet you Nick is pretty pissed right here that he didn't go and get a running back because, I mean, he could get, there are still some running backs here.
I do like Connor here. So I know Old Man River is
I do like him
it.
too, but, at the value on who's above him, do you go there? I'm sure Nick would want to snag some tight ends here in these couple picks, but he's had, Kyron as his only running back right now. He's got 3 wide receivers. Yeah, in terms of team formation, like you just lost out on Aaron Jones, Kamara, Mixon, Cook, and Kenneth Walker.
But that being said, and let me jump in here, I prefer someone like Ramondre Stevenson over top of Aaron Jones and Joe Mixon.
Yeah. He's still available, and you can go and get him.
And he's still, I think his ADP is going to go through the roof.
Nick said he wanted Richardson.
Yeah,
he was waiting for Richardson.
I think there's a good chance that Stevenson's ADP continues to rise. Like it rose from when he got his contract extension.
Yeah.
And all the reports are coming out. I also think James Conner's ADP may rise a little bit because the report just came out that he's going to get majority touches in the backfield according to head coach and offensive coordinators. So that makes you feel a little bit more comfortable drafting Connor in the 4th and 5th versus
Nick's about to have auto draft here.
Yep.
He doesn't make a pick.
That's fine. And he goes Connor. And he goes Connor, which I think is a good pick. You solidify your number 2 role. Yep. Who this guy, let's not forget, 4 years ago was a touchdown king for running backs, and he continued to excel even without Kyler Murray. He's been the backbone of this offense.
Yeah, and having now having the 2 picks after me already having quarterback, I'm not really worried about taking a quarterback here, right? They don't have tight ends, so I am concerned about there's 2 tight ends here that I would want to take a piece of. But the value there is showing that T. Higgins, George Pickens, Keenan Allen are the next 3. Now I already have DJ Moore, so I don't think I don't necessarily want to shy away from grabbing a duo of wide receivers from the same team. That doesn't really scare me too much. Like George Pickens, I actually like T. Higgins now that he finally signed the franchise tag.
Oh yeah,
I like him now there. Am I willing to go and double up there?
but T. Higgins in the 5th is a value at that point.
Right. And so that's where I think I want to go there, except for the fact that I love George Kittle. So I'm going to go George Kittle here. Pickens and Higgins go. Kyle Pitts goes. So again,
Oh man, see, this is the problem when you have computers drafting you here. Look at Team 11, 5 wide receivers. I mean, I've seen people do it before.
yeah, I mean,
But in a
listen,
standard league, 5 wide receivers and a quarterback.
yeah, I mean, maybe the computer is holding out for some Ramondre Stevenson or those other late running backs.
True.
For me, like again, there are some running backs here that I do like, but it comes down to value at wide receiver or having a bounce back season from Joe Burrow and going with that. But I think that I want to get my third wide receiver and get them on the board. I'm going to go ahead and grab Christian Kirk here.
Yeah, safety net right there. That's a guy that's going to guarantee to give you consistency across.
So
the
Evan
board.
Ingram goes, and again, this is kind of the handcuff that you put yourself in sometimes sitting at Nick's position. Now he has 3 wide receivers and 2 running backs, and now all the premier tight ends have really gone, and so I'm sure he would have loved to have a wide receiver or a tight end and a quarterback at this point. And now you're loading up on value. It's not a bad thing, right? You're gonna have to reach on some guys and lose on value at some point, because you're going to need to go and get people at those positions.
Yeah, in a position that he's in right there, I think you are so committed to the draft already. You continue to load up on your skill positions. You get a McLaurin, you get a Ramondre here, you get a Jaden Reed or DeAndre Swift. You get in position so that not only are you ready to trade to somebody if there's an injury that happens, but you're also in a position that you now are playing the matchups. And if you're comfortable skipping on Burrow here and you're comfortable with like a Freiermuth at your tight end or somebody a little later on, you have no worries because your skill positions are putting up consistent numbers compared to some of these others like Team 5 who has Chase and Mike Evans, but Kenneth Walker. And yeah, he's got Kincaid and Josh Allen and all that stuff. But the skill level that tapers off at his running back.
Team 4 and Team 5 doubled up on the tight end quarterback duos.
Which is a nice way to do it.
Yeah.
For those specific teams, I'd say.
For those guys, yeah, for sure.
So let's see what Nick does here. It is a tough one to do when you are hoping people fall to you. I never like to play the hope they fall game. But he goes ahead and goes McLaurin. So he goes with his 4th wide receiver, gets the skill position up big. Burrow goes right after him. Ramondre Montgomery, DeAndre Swift, who I was kind of hoping would fall to me there. Jaden Reed, and Kyler Murray. So Kyler was the one that I really wanted here.
Yeah.
Because if I can get Kyler in the 6-7 turn, I'm very happy. But I'm okay without him there. Now I'm in a position that I like to be in because you got some players here that I think are just being neglected in terms of ADP. How Hollywood Brown on that offense is ranked 76 overall right now in sleepers beside me.
Yeah, I mean, you do have in the next from 74 to 80, you have 3 wide receivers from the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah, so they don't know people don't know how to draft them yet.
Right.
People are obviously Xavier Worthy's up because you had a lot of dynasty rookie drafts,
and then Rashee Rice is getting bumped down because of
potential
his legal
suspension. So there's what I'm going to do here is I'm going to bump the quarterback position. I'm going to go ahead and get myself
bump.
Yep, I'm going to give myself 2 players that I really like here, and I think are going to have both bounce back seasons on new teams.
Do it.
And that is Hollywood Brown.
Yeah.
And that is Calvin Ridley.
Yeah, he did it both.
So both of those go.
New faces. New places.
Let me break it down. Hollywood Brown's going to Pat Mahomes at the Chiefs. Deep threat is brought back there. Yes, we know the speed comes for Worthy, so that's another deep threat. Hollywood Brown is going to be a better wide receiver. He's better than Rashee Rice as a wide receiver, in my opinion. He's better overall wide receiver than Worthy. He's going to be the guy that Mahomes is going to want to lean to when it's not Kels. Then on top of that, Calvin Ridley. Calvin Ridley had some tough drops last year. That being said, you could argue, they were drops. They were bad passes just out of his reach, whatever it may be. he now goes to a place that I think they paid him the big bucks, and he's going to be their premier receiver outside of DeAndre Hopkins. And I think that's where you're going to see him flourish. It's going to be a pass-first offense, which is going to be new for the Tennessee Titans, which if you don't have a chance, see our upcoming episode on that division. And I think he's going to be the leader in that, maybe not in targets, but he's going to be the leader in overall fantasy points.
I disagree with you there. So Raheem Mostert goes, Javonte Williams goes, and I'm sitting here on the board where
you got 2 minutes. So why do you disagree with the Calvin Ridley?
So I like D-Hop there better. I think that he is a better wide receiver for Levis and what they're looking for. I think Ridley comes in to being like a 2A position. We saw Ridley, flutter up and down. He needs a 1A on the other side in order for him to be effective.
And he does. That's the thing. He has that now, though.
Right. But he's still the 2.
That's fine.
And he was still the 2 in Atlanta
when he was. You could still be the 2 and lead in fantasy points.
I don't see him leading in fantasy points. I think D-Hop is still there. D-Hop still has a lot of talent with him. I think actually the ball gets spread around a lot more now this year. There's other weapons there. Tyler Boyd is there. They have Chig, who they're probably going to use, and then 2 receiving backs out of the backfield. Speaking of my pick here, and again, the 2 guys after me have quarterbacks, so I'm not necessarily going to go there. With all the other Kansas City Chiefs there, I want a piece of this too. I'm going to go Rashee Rice here. Brock Bowers goes Tony Pollard, Chris Godwin, Jonathan Brooks. And here's exactly where I wanted to do it. I'm going to go ahead and grab my quarterback here with Jordan
Love. I like that pick. I love that pick. That's who I kind of wanted to hopefully would fall to me too as well.
Nick was probably hoping for Jordan Love.
Jordan Love as well.
For him, but the Jordan Love and Dak goes. So you have Caleb Williams here if he wanted to do that. This is a position that I actually like how this draft has kind of fallen out for me. There were some running backs. There were the last couple rounds I was thinking about going running back and getting my 3rd running back. I'm glad I waited. I think that there's still some really good value that's further down the board that I really like and that I really haven't had access to because I've stacked early at running back.
Yeah.
And I've had to fill in my roster.
I've been in the same boat as you are, and that's where I went early on 2. And I'm now in a position where I feel a little bit more comfortable, a little bit late. And I kind of find it funny. We haven't done this before. You're at the 10 spot, and I'm at the 1 spot. And we are literally neck and neck with 2 running backs, then 2 receivers, then a tight end, then 2 receivers.
Yeah.
We've never been on the same page like that before.
Yeah. I mean, and you're probably going to end up going quarterback here because
in the next 2 picks,
you're going to need to.
Possibly. I mean, it just depends on who's there.
I mean, you're going to have some options there. It's pretty good.
I want to see. It depends on who's there outside of the quarterbacks.
Right. I mean, double down, go D-Hop if he falls down to you.
Well, I mean, there's others here. I mean, Nick Chubb is a big question mark for everybody.
He's a big question, but you already have 2 running backs with Achane.
Correct.
And that's a good position for him to, to be able to snag. D-Hop goes.
Nick goes D-Hop, Njoku, Jalen Warren, Zach Moss, Eckler,
and there's
Chubb.
the run on running backs.
Yep. So I really wanted Zach Moss.
Yep.
That's who I wanted to pick right here. And in that case, he's not here, and I'm okay with that. So that means I'm going to take – I still need a 3rd running back here. I like my 4 receivers. I think to me, at the end of the day, I would like Brian Thomas on my team a lot.
Yeah.
But I don't want to give up that. I mean, I like Keon Coleman. Like these 2 guys right here are screaming in my face. And then you have Devin Singletary, who is a volume play for the New York Giants, which I'd like to go take and make that pick because I want to guarantee myself a good 3rd bye week. I'm not looking at the bye weeks here, to be honest with you, but a good bye week running back here, somebody who's going to give me what I need in a replacement. And if there's an injury, you got to have somebody.
Yeah, for sure.
And if my mouse was working, I would do that. But speaking of the next pick here, after that, I'm going to go quarterback.
I mean, I guess you have to at this point because a lot of guys at this point, there are some guys that are going to probably double down on quarterbacks. So Devin Singletary goes, and then you have your option. Like, who do you like there at these next couple spots? The Brock Purdy, Tua, Jared Goff, Jaden Daniels, Caleb Williams, Justin Herbert falling down way down there. Trevor Lawrence Kirk Cousins. There's a lot of options still available. So is there a guy there that you like above the rest, or are you willing to boot this for another 2 rounds?
And here's the thing is there's a little bit of a double Dutch situation here, whether I'm jumping in, jumping out on one of these rookie quarterbacks, because based on ADP, they're going to probably be gone. Like, I love Jaden Daniels. I would love to have him on my team, and I'd like to pair him with Goff or Herbert. Does Goff or Herbert make it their way back to me? The odds are slim to none. I think Nick's probably going to take one of them.
Well, and you and Nick are the only ones without a quarterback at this point.
Yeah. So, to me, I'd be okay punting it, but I could also go Jaden Daniels and then hope someone like Aaron Rodgers drops to me.
And yeah, and they will. I mean, like these are guys that you're going to have an option at 2 of these guys, and we've talked about it where you're in the position where once you lose out on the elite guys, now you have kind of you have to go and grab two of these mediocre guys to be able to play them against matchups. Because they're just not, like, none of these guys are going to end up being top 5 quarterbacks.
No, but someone like Jaden Daniels can have a top 5 week easily.
He could.
Which is why that's who I'm going to go with here. Yeah. Because I don't think he's making his way back to me. But if someone like Matt Stafford makes his way back to me, or Aaron Rodgers,
yep. So there you go. I mean, so you see teams starting to double down on the quarterback. So back to Nick, where he's probably going to do the same thing here. He's
still got the good field.
He goes Dallas Goedert.
There, he gets his tight end. Arguably, Ferguson, Goddard, Freiermuth, those are 3 guys after the Njoku pick. And even Njoku, like, it's going to be interesting to see how he does with Watson, because his stats weren't huge with Watson. His stats were better outside Watson, whereas Amari Cooper's stats with Watson were through the roof, and when he played with DTR, they were terrible. So Goddard is a good solid pick here. As one of those last tight ends out there, Jackson Smith goes. You're on the board here.
Yeah, I mean, now I'm in a position where I'm going to go and take some value here, and the value I'm going to start with is going back-to-back Packers and getting Christian Watson. That's who I'm going to snag just to get a wide receiver to pair up with him.
I like that.
And the guy that I wanted to get fell back down to me. Wow, look at that, 11-12, doubling down on getting their quarterbacks. But I'm going to go. I have my 2 running backs that are starters. I want to go and get another guy that's going to have some volume, who's going to be a starter. And really, I was hoping Brian Robinson was going to fall down to me, and he went in a couple picks before. So there's really only one other guy that is there that's going to have volume, and that's Gus Edwards. And so I'm going to snag Gus Edwards.
Projected volume.
But I'm going to go and grab him with my.
We're going to take this for 12 rounds. Let's do it for 12 rounds here, because there's some people here that are not drafted, and people are probably going to want to know what our thoughts are on them. Schultz goes afterwards. Again, he's part of that late crowd of tight ends that they're all kind of in the same tier together, that each week one of them have a boom with a touchdown, or they're all sitting there in the same position here with probably 60 yards, no touchdown. Nick's up here. He still is quarterback list with 3 picks left. So he goes Jerome Ford, somebody we know from his talking with him he loves. A great volume option, especially with Chubb being out. Javonte Williams, or Jameson Williams, I'm sorry, goes right afterwards. And I love Jameson this year. I know you're not as high as him on I am, but I think he has a potential to be. I mean, they drafted him in the first round. All their first round picks with Dan Campbell are getting their options. And towards the end of the season, he was getting targeted. And I think if he polishes his route running a little bit, and people get used to the speed, and Goff gets used to the speed thrown to him, I think he's going to be a great target.
There's very few number 3 options on a team that I love.
But why do you say he's going to be number 3? I think he's going to be number 2.
Over Laporta?
No, I think he could be just a 2B with Laporta.
No.
Because he can do something that the 2 of those other receivers cannot do. Pass catchers cannot do.
Is the boom play?
The boom play.
But you see that from Amon-Ra, you see that from Laporta.
But if they take a page out of Miami, if they take a page out of one of these teams that uses them,
that's not how the team is built.
No, but I'm just saying, are they winning Super Bowls? Are they getting to the Super Bowl right now?
They had a run last year.
Yeah, and what were they missing?
Listen, it wasn't the boom play. They had it with Laporta and Amon-Ra.
I'm just saying, I think he's gonna surprise people. But we're sitting here too. I got 30 seconds on the clock here.
I mean, Justin Herbert fell back down to you like you thought he was going to do.
Yeah,
So,
and
I mean,
that's going to be my first pick to give me some time about my next pick because I want to back up Daniels with Herbert. I think Herbert's going to have a
bounce back.
Bounce back season, bounce back season. Almost comeback player of the year type season. I think under Jim Harbaugh, he's going to get the offense he needs to help him
I
succeed.
think Aaron Rodgers is going to do that.
I think, well, yeah, I guess you're right. I mean, it's lined up for him. I'm not saying he's winning the award. I'm saying that type of year.
Yeah.
So then that leaves me here with what I want to do, and I'm going to go with my favorite players on the board here in terms of running back or wide receiver. And looking at everybody here, there are a lot of names that don't really jump off the page at you, right? But there is one guy that I do love here that is going to fall back down to me, I'm hoping. But Romeo Doubs, Chase Brown are the two that I'm eyeing here for my second pick. And Romeo, red zone threat, touchdown guy. I think he's going to still solidify that spot because he had that even with Christian Watson on the team and Jaden Reed. Jeez, I'm losing my words here. That Red Bull hit hard. But Chase Brown, I think, is going to surprise some people. I think Zach Moss is a very good running back.
Sure.
But I think Chase Brown has another gear in him, and I think they're going to need.
He was a guy I loved last year, and I thought was going to be involved a little bit more. And you saw him getting involved in the second half of the season, and no, I really like him this year in year two.
Yeah,
I still don't think the volume is going to be there for him, but with Zach Moss and moving on from Mixon, I think he's going to be kind of stepping into more of that almost Tony Pollard role with Zeke and Dallas,
which was actually better for Tony Pollard than it was.
Which I think it's going to benefit him well because you don't have a clear number one with Zach Moss.
Correct.
That's going to command 80% of the workload.
You got a rookie in Burton as your wide receiver 3. So that gives him a trusted hands out the backfield. You have T. Higgins, who hasn't been healthy for the past couple of years at all. Joe Burrow's barely been healthy, and Jamar Chase has been injured here and there. Chase Brown, if Zach Moss gets injured, they have a running back 1 right there in Chase Brown who could do it all, but they don't need him to do that. You're right. The Pollard role is what you want.
Hill. So Nick just completely punts the quarterback.
Well, he's got to go quarterback next round because it's a 12-round pick here.
Yeah, he's got it.
But I think he likes what he sees. I mean, Lawrence just went, but in terms of quarterbacks that are left for him, you still have Cousins, Stafford, Rodgers, Baker, Deshaun Watson, Will Levis. I mean, to me, Deshaun Watson's even one that's going to fall down these boards that has an opportunity to have a very successful season.
Yeah, and so there's one other guy that I really liked here, and we talked about Gus Edwards last round. There's another guy I really liked here that I wanted to snag, who I think is going to have projected volume. Again, I don't think Jonathan Brooks is going to come in and command the workload there. So I'm going to go and grab Chuba Hubbard right here, solidify my 4th running back, and then just knowing that Nick doesn't have a quarterback yet, I'm going to go and grab a quarterback here. And I'm going to go and grab the duel of fates here, I'm going to call them. And that's a great team name if you got both these quarterbacks here, is Jordan Love and Aaron Rodgers. And the heir apparent.
Xavier Legette afterwards for Carolina, the new rookie wide receiver. Up here, again, showing everybody here, if you can see on the left, Kirk Cousins, Matt Stafford, Baker Mayfield. He has the pick of the litter and who he thinks is going to have the best season. In my opinion, I think Stafford's going to have a fantastic bounce back year too. Again,
there's Deshaun Watson,
which again, another guy who I like his ability. Like when he's on, he's on. And then I close out the end of the draft here after Stafford goes, Luke Musgrave, Troy Franklin, the guy I was hoping would fall to me, and I almost took him instead of Chase Brown. Jalen Wright, Rashid Shaheed, Kirk Cousins, and then me. And I'm going to take a stab at a guy that I'm really excited to try and get here, and that's going to be Marshawn Lloyd. To me, Marshawn Lloyd has a role in this offense, just like everybody watched A.J. Dillon have a role in that offense with Aaron Jones. I think it's going to be Josh Jacobs and Marshawn Lloyd. Now, it's Jacobs' backfield, and I think Jacobs is going to catch a lot of balls. He's going to do a lot of things back there.
What happens to A.J. Dillon?
They barely re-signed him.
But they did.
But they barely re-signed him. I think they've already talked about how Marshawn Lloyd has something that no other running back in their roster has. and his ability with his speed and agility. He was the most elusive running back coming out of college.
Yeah, and this is when we talked about his preview. The reason I liked Marshawn Lloyd coming out as a running back in this draft class is I thought he was the most complete running back out of any of them. His pass pro is good. He's a good pass catcher. He's elusive. He's dynamic. He's a great runner. So and he didn't have a lot of usage last year.
No.
So he's used to these roles where he doesn't have to carry the workload. But yeah, that completes the draft here. 12 rounds we did. So we had 3 more rounds to go. It would have been a lot of defenses, kickers, one more pick.
We could have went 13, but there, that's where you're starting to pick up your scraps, and you'll get our opinions on some of those guys out there as well, because as you can see, not a lot of Giants receivers besides Neighbors have been chosen.
There shouldn't be.
I don't know. I'm pretty high on Wandale, and that's not being a homer in terms of being a Giants fan.
It is.
I think Wandale is going to have a piece.
Well, listen, there's other guys on this list that weren't picked that I like above any of those. I mean, Polk wasn't picked. None of the Patriots receivers were picked.
Yeah, well, because I don't think they know how to draft them. And that offense, who knows how it's going to be. But let's break it down real quick, and then I'll have Chris talk about his team, and I'll close out talking about my team. But before we jump into the final rosters, don't forget to like and subscribe. Hit that notification button, because we are going to start dropping our divisional breakdowns, which are not just going to break down the teams themselves, but we're going to break down our opinions on the individual players all the way down and get you that minutia that you need to get into your draft season. So we got about 2 months until the start of the season. So we want to get you everything you need to be the best drafter come draft day.
Go and win a championship. So let me break down my team. Kind of the strategies that I really, anyone who's ever played with me, who's ever heard me, talk on this podcast, knows I'm all about running back early. So that was never a doubt in my mind, unless, I really wasn't that. Someone would have had to really fall. Amon-Ra, Jamar Chase, any of these wide receivers that went in the first 7 picks would have had to fall down to me in order for me to make a move. I like Puka, I like Garrett Wilson, I like Harrison. Don't get me wrong, I really like those players, but when you're talking about running back, there's such a disparity between the guys you can get in the first 2 rounds versus everyone else that you can get. So started off getting Jahmyr Gibbs, following up with Jonathan Taylor. I love that running back duo. Every week I'm going to be in it at the running back, honestly, Team 2 has a nice stack. Team 6 has a nice stack.
But you see what you got to do that. I mean, even Team 4 has an upside stack. But
there's an upside stack, but I'm talking week in, week out.
Yeah.
Having guys that can win you
Team
weeks.
9, Rachaad White, Pacheco, Breece Hall.
Yeah.
But you see what you got to do. You got to go early, and you got to go almost 3 in a row.
Right. So, following up in that 3rd round, I think I could have went, that's where I started to debate, do I get Rachaad White here? Do I get a 3rd running back? I saw DJ Moore still on the board, and I was like, let's start hammering receiver. So go get DJ Moore as my wide receiver 1. Pittman was always the guy I wanted there, but I knew the opportunity. I was going to lose out on DJ Moore, and I had to get Michael Pittman. I would, like I said, during the draft, I would have been fine getting Michael Pittman there and then getting Devonta Smith at the number 2. I would have been perfectly happy doing that, but the explosive upside that you have with DJ Moore, I love having that. And so DJ Moore, Michael Pittman, followed up with my favorite guy, my favorite Kittle.
Yep. Since he's been a rookie,
I love George Kittle.
Well, you got to like the way he plays football. That's why.
I think he is I've said this. He's the most complete tight end in the league, and he plays tight end the way tight ends should play. He's not a pure receiver, but he's excellent. He's an excellent receiver, but he's an excellent blocker.
I always likened his game to Jeremy Shockey.
Yeah,
because the intensity and attitude they bring to the field are the same person.
Yeah,
he's not trying to be Joe Cool and smooth operator. He's a force to reckon with on there, and he's gonna go head on when somebody's trying to get him.
Right, and he's gonna take on any defensive lineman, any D end, any linebacker. He's gonna go and take.
He's not foaming at the mouth like Shockey, but
he doesn't come off the field, and that's why I love him. And then I start looking at my team. I have 2 running backs. I have 2 wide receivers. I thought about going quarterback here, but losing out, really the only other guy I would have had was Joe Burrow or Kyler Murray, and I wanted to punt that, go get Christian Kirk and Rashee Rice, which I love the upside of having those 4 receivers there on my team. Get Jordan Love at quarterback as my quarterback 1. I love that. I love him this year, and to have him fall down to the 9th round, I absolutely love that value there. Go and get his one of his primary targets in Christian Watson following his removal of partial hamstring removal. So hopefully he stays healthy this year and plays more than 8 games. But when he does play, we've seen what kind of
Well,
value
he's your
he can bring.
5th receiver anyway.
Right, exactly. So then go and solidify with 2 potential high-volume running backs in Gus Edwards, Chuba Hubbard, rounded out Aaron Rodgers. Love to see it. Duel of Fates.
So
That's my team name for this.
Duel of Fate. So I had the number 1 pick. So it's in a standard scoring number 1 pick. I'm going McCaffrey day in and day out. Even if he doesn't finish at RB1, like I said earlier, he's going to finish top 3, top 4 at that position. And I'm fine with that at the 1 spot because I'd rather try not to take the gamble. Is it going to be Robinson 1? Is it going to be Brees 1? Is it going to be Taylor 1 or Saquon 1? Now, I love Saquon this year, and I'm crazy enough to pick him 1 overall, but out of spite from leaving the Giants, I would never do it. I come back with A-Chain. The thing about him, they've already talked about wanting to get him more touches. He had fantastic yards per carry last year, yards per touch last year, touchdowns per touch. Like the metrics were through the roof. Can he keep that up? Probably not. But if you take a third of that away, his numbers are still through the roof. And you give him 200 carries instead of 100 carries.
Yeah, I mean, let's look at the number 2 running back from last year, which was Raheem Mostert, right?
Oh, he's still there.
Well, I'm just saying is that Christian McCaffrey's numbers from 1 to 2 were so much higher. Like when he got traded to San Francisco, I was like, that's like he's in the perfect position.
Yeah.
Like that, this was a perfect move. It's so much better. Like I know everyone is saying Saquon Barkley to the Eagles and Derrick Henry to Baltimore. But when Christian McCaffrey got moved to San Francisco, it was the marriage between the style of running that this team does.
And Kyle Shanahan.
Well, no, I'm just saying the style of running that the team does with Kyle Shanahan and the perfect running back to go into
do that, yeah.
And that's where like you're going to see numbers like we saw last year. If he stays healthy, you're going to continue to see those numbers. Now, I'm going to say this before you kind of roll through the rest of your team. I would have done probably one thing differently than you. And that was at the 3rd pick, not go Nico Collins and go and get Travis Etienne. Because having the 1, 2, 3 punch of McCaffrey, HN, and ECN, those alone could have just won you the week.
Well, and that's the risk I took taking. It wasn't a risk taking Nico Collins. Like no, ETN as my flex, I would have been happy with. It would have been great. What I was scared of, and now that being said, I would have been happy with DK Metcalf as my wide receiver 1.
Right.
Because of the volume play, because of the touchdown potential. I have Collins on a week-to-week basis, Collins and ETN, they could be similar, and we saw it last year, but ETN has the upside of being the main guy at that team versus a kind of a committee at wide receiver for Nico. But I was afraid that somebody, the Nico caliber, was not going to drop to me there, and I wasn't going to get Waddle or Kupp or Moore or Pittman. And I was right. None of those guys came back to me, but I also didn't expect DK to come back to me.
Right.
So that's the risk I took there, and I'm happy with it. I'm willing to make my bed and sleep in it there. DK Metcalf I took afterwards in that at the end of the 4th round and went right into the tight end spot, kind of like what Chris did here. I took McBride because I have him ranked higher than Mark Andrews and Kincaid and all those guys, not just based on last year alone, but also the sheer fact that they added 1 premier wide receiver there. They didn't change the running game as much. Kyler Murray's coming back off his injury. I think people are sleeping on Kyler Murray. He should be drafted higher. That being said, I think McBride's the number 2 option there, and a number 2 option as a tight end is the same thing as Sam Laporta, who's going way up higher above that. And I'd rather take the 5th round, 5th round similar volume. He could finish above Laporta. We just don't know. He's in that tier.
Yeah.
Hollywood Brown I took afterwards at the end of the 6th round because I think he's going to be the wide receiver 1 there. What that means, we'll see, but I want to have a piece of that offense. Calvin Ridley, who I think is going to finish with more fantasy points as the 1B to DeAndre Hopkins. Chris disagrees, but that's my take on Calvin Ridley this year. I rounded out the end of the 8th with getting Devin Singletary. I wanted to get a volume running back here before I went quarterback. I found that was more, I had 2 back-to-back picks, but that was really important for me to get that volume running back, and I almost decided to go with 2 and go Singletary, Brian Robinson, but I didn't want to risk not getting Jaden Daniels. His rushing ability, his arm on his new offense, they're going to give him the keys to the Corvette and let him go with it. I think this is going to be a fun season for a rookie quarterback. He's going to outperform Caleb Williams, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think so.
In fantasy at the least.
I think so.
And then coming back around end of the 10th, I wanted to get a safe bet. And the fact that Herbert was still sitting there, I was taking him within the next two picks because if it wasn't him, it was going to be Goff and Purdy were gone already. I took Herbert. So starting the season off with Herbert and eventually probably transferring over to Jaden Daniels or playing the matchups. Chase Brown and Marshawn Lloyd rounded out. I went running back. I mean, we're a standard league here. I think there's upside for both these guys as the number 2 running backs on their teams. And they're an injury away from being the top dog, as well as still carving out a role, getting probably 17 touches a game, depending, through the air and with running opportunities.
Yeah. Who's the guy in this draft that you got sniped within 2 picks of you that you were really targeting?
The one I was targeting was late Troy Franklin. I love, in the last round. Troy Franklin is one of my favorite players. I think, like I said it before, it is my bold take that he's going to lead that offense in targets and yardage for Denver. That was one of the big ones. And the only other one was Kyler Murray. He went 1 pick before my Hollywood Brown. My plan was to go Murray Brown and not Brown Ridley, but I like the Brown Ridley anyway.
Yeah.
How about you? What was your big one that you were hoping?
There was only one, and Nick did it. 2 picks in front of me was Raheem Mostert. I was really hoping that Mostert fell down to me. I was targeting him from where I was going to draft him actually where I drafted Christian Kirk. But I felt it was a little bit too early, and the chance to get Kirk on my team as my wide receiver 3 was too great there. And then I was sitting there. I'm like, Lad McConkey went, Zamir White went, like all these other guys. And I'm sitting there. I'm like, all right, Mostert's there, and I really thought that Nick was going to go and grab Rashee Rice, or at this point Brock Bowers,
or quarterback,
or a quarterback. I don't know, but he went Mostert, 2 picks in front of me. It changed up my what I kind of wanted to do for the next 2 rounds, because at that point I probably would have went Mostert and then gotten another wide receiver, and then had to punt quarterback for another round or 2 where I wouldn't have the opportunity to get Love. So it kind of worked out for me. I do like Love this year. I don't want to say I love Love, but I like Love this year.
Who would you say was your favorite pick for your pick just to close out this episode?
I mean,
and I'll tell you who I thought from your team my favorite pick was.
Okay, so I mean, there's 2 favorite picks of mine, and I've kind of been drafting a lot of them is Michael Pittman and George Kittle, and I get them back to back. Like those are the 2 guys I love the most. I mean, you never know in the first round. You kind of like concede, in first and second round. It's like who's still there that you really like. So yeah, I love Jahmyr Gibbs and I love Jonathan Taylor, but like I would have been happy if I got Jonathan Taylor or Saquon Barkley and Derrick
whatever
Henry.
combination
Of those 2 guys. So I'm not like, oh yeah, I really, really wanted Jonathan Taylor on my team, and I knocked it out of the park by getting him. But I really wanted Michael Pittman on my team, and I got him. And I really wanted George Kittle on my team, and I got him. So those were my 2.
My favorite from your team, I would say, is probably Chuba Hubbard. I think if people are sleeping on him, the late 11th round, you get him in there too. He's going to be the volume play. I don't think if Carolina's smart, they're not going to play Brooks at all this season because this team's not making it to the playoffs.
No.
And so I think Chuba has the grip on that running back room. I know Miles Sanders is still there, but I think you get yourself a great volume play, and he could be your flex. I mean, at the end of the day, because he could be putting up bigger points than Kirk and Rashee on a week-to-week basis.
Yeah. No, but I love that combination. How about you? Who's your favorite pick?
Favorite pick that I got, it's hard to not say Justin Herbert in the 10th there. Yeah, I like Justin Herbert in the 10th a lot, but honestly, the biggest one I think would be McBride in the 5th, because I haven't had a lot of shares of him because people are drafting him real high up.
Yeah.
And unless you're in that start of that round there in the 5th round, you're probably not going to get him. So those would be my 2 favorites there.
Nice.
So, well, thanks everybody for tuning in. That's the end of our episode. Feel free to comment. Let us know what you think of each one of his drafts. If you feel like deciding who quote unquote won the draft, go ahead, tell us what you think. But at the end of the day, thanks for the support. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.